Oh, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us today.
Of course, my pleasure.
Now, mate, I've been a fan of your movies over the last few years, and I have to ask to start off with, where did your love for cinema come from? Because I don't know if I know anybody else who loves cinema quite the way you do.
Well, that's very kind. I think movies have always been with me, and it's, I remember watching them from a very, very young age. I have these very early memories of movies. In fact, like Eyes Without a Face. I remember walking on my parents watching it one night. I was probably like 2 years old, and I just remember those images. And then years later, when I watched the film again, and it all came back, and I was like, wow, that was the film that haunted me all these years, I think movies have always been around, and I think I was always this sort of young cinephile. I mean, at the age of 12, I was doing these quote-unquote salon events with my parents and their friends, where I would essentially like curate, like every Sunday, like a movie series, and watch them on VHS, and I would introduce the films, and we'd do a Q&A afterwards. And I don't know, man, it's been in my blood forever, and now I'm just living the dream, I guess.
Yeah. Can you remember the first time you saw The Exorcist, and what was your thoughts when you walked away from the film?
It's funny because I watched The Exorcist for the first time pretty late, and even though I was a massive horror movie fan as a kid, and I was watching horror movies from a very young age, that was not the case with The Exorcist, and that's because my mom had told me how traumatized she had been when she watched it, and she couldn't sleep for a week, and so it was one of those movies that I kept kicking the can down the road, as it were, just kept wanting to wait. And I think I watched it. I must have been in my 20s when I watched it for the first time, and it deeply affected me. I mean, I think my relationship with the film, which hopefully comes across in Leap of Faith, is really an emotional relationship. And I think it's a deeply, deeply human and deeply affecting movie. I don't even think about the special effects, or to me the horror elements of The Exorcist are almost the least interesting aspects of it. I think what makes the movie so important, and the reason why it moves people so profoundly, is because it's a film about love, and so the fact that I met Bill Friedkin and got to build this relationship, and over time, and have him open up about the film this way has been really quite special.
And one of the things that always stands out for me about The Exorcist is, like you said, it's a movie that traumatizes a lot of people when they watch it the first time, yet it's still considered a masterpiece. So many movies that do traumatize people kind of get pushed away, and people don't bother with the movie, but The Exorcist is still considered a masterpiece. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think anytime you're talking about a movie whether a movie should fall within the realm of what we call the masterpieces of cinema, I think to me the real test is when you watch that film again and again and again, does it get better? Do you see more things every time that you watch it? And for me, the ultimate test was actually in preparation for A Leap of Faith. I took The Exorcist. I went to just a beautiful location in Northern California on a vineyard, pretty close to where Hitchcock actually shot The Birds in Bodega. And I took The Exorcist with me. I had this sort of little morning routine where I would wake up at 5:30 and go pay my respects to Hitchcock. Drive by the Potter School, go on the beach, get my coffee, get back to the vineyard, and watch The Exorcist every morning for 30 days.
Yep.
And so I know, right? So I would watch The Exorcist in the morning, and then in the afternoon I would write. I would start, working on my questions, on my themes, on all the things I want to talk to Billy about. But every single day during that period of time, new layers kept coming up again and again and again, and it's like every great film, every time I watch Vertigo, every time I watch Citizen Kane, every time I watch Woman in the Dunes. I mean, or Blade Runner or whatever. Every time you watch those films, there's always a new sort of dimension that opens up, and I think to me that's the sign of, this is just, it is a masterwork of cinema for sure.
Yeah. What were some of the themes and some of the things that you noticed this time going back and watching The Exorcist 30 times that you hadn't noticed previously?
Well, I started really latching on to the process, his process as a filmmaker, and that's what I became really interested in. Obviously, there's been some documentaries made about The Exorcist. I wanted this to be a departure from that. I really wanted to focus on Friedkin. And he offered, of course, he said, if you want to talk to Linda Blair, if you want to talk to, Max von Sydow at the time, or Ellen Burstyn, or whoever, just let me know. And I said, as of course, I would have loved to have met those people. It would have been a tremendous honor. I stayed true to what this film was going to be in my mind, which was essentially The Exorcist according to William Friedkin. And I really wanted it. In fact, I was really glad that from day one we agreed that we would not even talk about special effects. We would not even mention special effects. So the fact that we got to experience or discuss or do this sort of deep dive into The Exorcist through, influences, inspirations, classic cinema, music, and art, that's what I was really interested in, because I think at the end of the day, Leap of Faith is, of course, it is about The Exorcist, but it's really much more of a window onto William Friedkin, I think, as a man and as a filmmaker, there you go. That's it.
I was really surprised about his faith coming through in the movie as well. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And did that surprise you when you learnt about as you've named it, Leap of Faith? Did that surprise you when that came through when he was talking about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's interesting because we really, I think, connect on a lot of levels. When he talks about grace notes, when he talks about the mysteries of life, when he talks about faith and fate, and the fact that we don't know anything. I mean, those are, philosophically, those are ideas that resonate with me now that would have resonated with me when I was a 5-year-old kid. Because I mean, those are things I was thinking about when I was very, very young. So I mean, I think he is, we're very much aligned, I think, in terms of spirituality on that level, and it was just so lovely, to see him open up in that way. I mean, obviously, I think the most sort of important moment, which obviously now is the final sequence of the film, is when he talks about, the Kyoto Zen Gardens, which I completely took me by surprise. That actually happened on day 4 of our interviews. And all of a sudden he said, really out of the blue, he said, "Did I tell you about the Kyoto Zen Gardens?" And I said, "No." Well, go ahead, And he launches into this absolutely extraordinary monologue. And that was a lot. I mean, it was a complete sort of game changer for me at that moment to see him, open up in that way, obviously tearing up, talking about this experience that he had in Kyoto decades ago. And I knew that was the sort of the essence of William Friedkin. That was the first of all, it had to be the end of the film. I knew then that it was going to be the end of the film, but I also knew that we would have to find a way to go to Kyoto, because there's no way that you can, present that ending without actually going there and filming there. We didn't have the budget to do it, but we found a way because we had to, and I'm really glad. And I have to say that going there, following the footsteps of William Friedkin in Kyoto, was quite a life-changing experience for me as well. And I can't wait to go back. It's an amazing place.
Definitely. And I know we are running out of time, but I just wanted to ask very quickly, what was William like to meet and to work with? Because I haven't seen very many filmmakers who are so open to talk about a film like he was with The Exorcist here.
I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, talking about fate, that happened organically. I was at the Sitges Film Festival in 2017, touring with 7852, my film about the shower scene, and he was getting the Lifetime Achievement Award. We were having a lunch at the same restaurant on the port, and he called me to his table and started sharing some stories about Hitchcock and invited me to have lunch with him 3 weeks later in Los Angeles. And I mean, essentially, he sort of, gave me that opportunity on a silver platter. And I'm not exactly sure how wide it. I mean, obviously, he's a very, he works on instinct. So something I'm sure clicked, with him. I wasn't planning on making this film. I never plan on even asking him on making this film. It just happened. And as he's told me later, which I've always find sort of amusing and a little bit scary, is he said you're now part of the fate of The Exorcist. So yeah, right. It's like holy cow. Okay, well I'll take it as a compliment, I guess. But no, it's a lovely thing to say, and what makes me happy more than anything is how moved he has been with the film. I mean, he gave me total carte blanche. He never interfered. He never asked to see anything. And when it became clear that he was unfortunately, he was quite sick at the time for our premiere at Venice, and he was planning on going there, and he wanted to experience the film in front of an audience, but didn't get the opportunity to do that because he couldn't travel. So he asked to see the film, and of course I immediately sent him the link. But he sent me an email that was. It made me cry. It was just this incredible words of how much the movie, moved him. And, as a filmmaker, like as a documentary filmmaker, I mean, especially to get something like this from William Friedkin, it's like, it's pretty overwhelming. So I'm really glad that he approves of the film and what I've done with it.
Definitely. Well, mate, you have made an absolutely fantastic film, and I'm glad that it's showing at Monsterfest. So, once again, thank you so much for chatting to us, and congratulations on such a marvelous film.
Well, my pleasure, and I hope you guys have a great fest, and thanks for the exposure, and most importantly, stay safe and healthy.
Definitely, you too. Thank you so much again, and hopefully we get to talk again in the future.
I hope so too.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, Alexander, I'm admitting fear.